Hi, my name's Drew, back with Princess Craft RV, and today I'm going to show you how to operate the systems and accessories on the Bushwhacker Plus 15FK. We're going to start right up front here with the loading and unloading process. What we have at the very front of the tongue is going to be your coupler and slide lock. As you see here, this is the unlocked position. Once we slide that forward, that's going to be the locked position. So we're going to start in the unlocked position here. We are going to use this hand crank jack to, of course, navigate the coupler above our ball. We are then going to back underneath the coupler, of course, center ourselves underneath. Once there, we, of course, lower the jack back down on top of that ball, and we are going to go ahead and slide this latch forward. Paying special attention that both of these vampire teeth are fully engaged in the frame. Excuse me. We also want to go back and pin this through these two holes. That's something that's not included with the purchase, but definitely recommended here as a dealership, whether that be under lock and key or just a spring pin. So once we're secured here, we're going to go ahead and take our tow chains. We're going to hook those onto the receiver of the vehicle. We're going to pay special attention that these are crossed underneath the coupler, so something like that. And also we want to make sure that these do not make contact with the pavement at any time. Of course, you're going to skate that fine line of making your turns left or right, but not so much slack that they may, in fact, make contact with the pavement. Riding right next to those tow chains is going to be your emergency breakaway cable. This is a very important safety feature. This is essentially your last line of defense. If you have any failures in these other tow components, as the two vehicles were to separate, it's going to act like a ripcord to the electric brake system, essentially helping you avoid a runaway camper scenario. So, good rule of thumb is to have a third connection point here on the receiver for your emergency breakaway. And again, skate that line of having enough slack to make your turns left or right, but not so much that this may make contact with the pavement. Also, we have your 7-way plug here. Now this plugs into the corresponding bumper receptacle. This is going to give you full function to your tow vehicle's braking system, lights, charging system. All of those things are going to be ran through this plug here. Hopping up here to your propane container, your propane cylinder. This is a 20-pound cylinder, same variant you're going to find on any gas grill. Easy open and close opening on the top. There is no cover for this particular setup. Feel free to add one if you'd like to help protect from rock debris, road debris, things like that. When installing and removing the tank or removing it for service, you're of course going to make sure that you go ahead and turn that service valve into the closed position. It's clearly marked with an arrow. We're going to disconnect our propane pigtail here. And then we have a little wing nut here that if we were to continue to loosen that, that will eventually allow us to go ahead and remove the tank for service. So something like that, you can go ahead, and the tank's full for you today, but that's how you're going to go ahead and get it filled. When returning it back to service, of course, set it in there. Go ahead, tighten your pigtail here nice and tight. Open your service valve here. And last but not least, make sure that we are going to go ahead and retension this band here to keep that from rattling around going down the road. Directly behind that, you have a brand new Interstate D-cycle battery. This is a lead acid or flooded battery, so what that means for you, it is going to carry some maintenance. 2 or 3 times a year, we're going to remove both of these vent panels and we are going to inspect the water level. Clear marked water line underneath those panels, and it's very important that we do maintain that water level using distilled water. Again, we're going to focus on the hottest of months. Generally, you're going to look at 2 or 3 times a year. We're going to go ahead and check those water levels. This will be covered by your battery compartment cover. That's just going to slip over top of those wires. You have a strap here to go ahead and secure it. We're just going to feed the excess through and go ahead and pull it nice and tight. That way that's not going to blow off going down the road. Moving along here, we have some septic vents here. Not anything you have to worry about. They do just kind of exist there. We also have your freshwater connection. Now this directly corresponds with the freshwater holding tank. Of course, this is the fill location. We're going to stick a freshwater drinking hose directly into that orifice. We're going to fill up until we're satisfied. Once satisfied, we of course cap it off. Now this is not naturally pressurized, so we are going to need to use that 12 volt water pump to go ahead and pressurize the system, draw that water up from the tank to the fixtures and make it usable. Dropping down low here, we have your solar connection here. This is designed, or this is a direct connection to the battery. It is designed for some portable solar. Idea being is that you can make that plug and play connection here, go ahead and take that panel out into the sun and take advantage of that solar. Coming down here, we have a tire rating and axle rating, data tag, tire tag here. This is going to let us know what the fill pressure is for those tires, and it's going to be 50 psi. Now that is the max tire pressure rating, not only here on the sticker, but on the sidewall of the tire as well. It's very important. We do want to run these tires, and any trailer tires for that matter, at the max tire pressure rating. So that's going to be that 50 psi we're looking to maintain. We are also going to go through a retorque procedure with the lug nuts. Those intervals are going to be the initial 10, 15, 25, 50, and 100 miles of initial travel. It's very important that we do use a torque wrench and make sure that they are maintaining that 100 foot-pounds of torque. Below that, we have your sewer outlet connections. You have your gray water blade valve, your black water blade valve, and then in the middle we have a bayonet style fitting. Very important that you keep these valves in the closed position until you are ready to dump. You will know as those tanks fill up by using the onboard monitor panel here on the inside, and we'll make sure we get eyes on that. Very important that these valves are never open at the same time. We want to avoid any backfeeding or cross-contamination issues. And to open either valve, it is just going to be a 6-inch pull towards you. In the middle here, we have a bayonet style fitting. We have 4 prongs along the outside, and sometimes these can be pretty stiff. We have 4 prongs here along the outside. Whether it be the cap or your sewage hose, they're going to connect the very same way. So they'd share these keyholes here. We're going to take your cap, we're going to put it in the halfway position. We're going to give it a quarter turn. Make sure it's nice and snug. Again, that's going to keep that locked on and watertight. And again, just a reminder, especially here with the black water tank, we do want to make sure that that is in the closed position. We have solid body waste, toilet paper, things like that. We want to keep especially that black water tank in as wet or flowing condition as we can, so that waste can evacuate that tank nice and easy. Moving on here, we have your refrigerator. Now this is a 3-way refrigerator. It runs on 110 volt electricity, 12 volt electricity, as well as propane gas. Now all of your controls are going to be right here on the rear of the unit. So you are going to light it and turn it on again from this space back here. You're going to go ahead and remove the vent like we already have here. And as you can see on this display, we have a 12 volt switch. We have a 110 volt switch. Now your dial is going to be, or your level of coolness is going to be configured here with this knob here. So if we make a visual representation, a line straight down the middle, everything here on that right side is going to be utilized for electricity. Everything there on that left side is going to be for propane gas. So again, whether it's 110 volt or 12 volt, this is going to be your temperature dial here. Now, if we want to go ahead and light it on propane, we're going to make sure that we have both of these sources in the off position. We're going to go ahead and take this all the way down until we get a click. That's going to let us know that we are in that off position. And then we're going to turn our knob here to medium or to high. Now, if the lines, especially if it's been sitting for a while, if it hasn't been lit for a while, or propane hasn't been ran through the system, this may take quite a bit longer than you may expect. So if that's the case, you may sit here with your finger holding this button down for 30 seconds or so before you even start igniting it. So you're going to hold this down. What you're going to do is you are going to hit this piezo igniter as rapidly as you can. So of course I can see here that it had already lit. In the case that it didn't, that lighting procedure would probably go something like this with your finger here. You'd be kind of sparking that like that. Do that a few times. You could lift that window up and inspect to see if you would see a flame. Now I'll get it actually lit here so we can see that flame. So there we see the flame in there. You can see it burning fairly clear. And we're going to turn that off. Other than that, this is going to be a huge intrusion point for mud daubers, flying insects. Really any nesting insect would love to make this their new home. So very important that we do use some aftermarket bug screens to go ahead and screen these inlets on both of these top and bottom vents. Also, when we talk about bug screens, it's very important to note that that's a good rule of thumb for all of your propane appliances. Next up on our stop would be the furnace here. This is your Dometic furnace. It's a 12 volt direct spark ignition, 12 volt blower motor, and then propane, of course, is your fuel. So not really a customer serviceable unit, not really much you're going to be doing in terms of maintenance with this particular unit. Again, cover it with the bug screen. Make sure we're not restricting that flow. Make sure we're keeping it free breathing. You want to put a lawn chair. It does blow very hot air when it is on. It'll just about melt anything you do put in front of it, so keep that in mind. Next up here is your power supply. This is your 30 amp, 110 volt power supply. Only plugs into the camper one way. So if we go ahead and take a look here at the plug, you will see that you have two slanted receptacles and one L-shaped. As long as we line up the corresponding shapes, it's going to plug straight in for us. We're going to give it an 1/8 inch turn to the right. That's going to go ahead and lock it on. Then we do have a secondary screw collar here to again screw down and make sure that that connection is nice and secure. We don't want that to be rattling around or somebody to potentially trip over it and pull it out of the camper. Now we already talked about the importance of retorquing these lug nuts down, but just to kind of touch base on that, with any 5 lug wheel, you're going to want to torque those down in a star pattern. So again, we're going to set our torque wrench to 100 foot-pounds, and we are just going to go around in a star twice. So that's how you make sure that they are torqued. And again, just to kind of drive it home, that is the first 15, 25, 50, and 100 miles of initial travel. It's very important that we do retorque those down. Manufacturer also recommends that at the start of each trip thereon after, you're going to want to make sure that they are, again, maintaining that 100 foot-pounds of torque. Moving on, we have your city water connection here. When we talk about your city water connection, water pressure becomes very important. These units are generally rated for no more than 75 PSI water pressure. We include a water pressure regulator with your purchase. It's very, very important that we do always use that. So we're going to go ahead and hook that directly onto the water source or the spigot. We are then going to take our water hose, hook that directly onto that pressure regulator. And lastly, we make our connection here on the trailer connection by rotating that trailer bound connection. And it looks like I'm going the wrong way. So something like that. Make sure we make that nice and tight. It does have a little rubber washer in there that's going to keep it watertight. I've seen where some people may use a little bit of Teflon there on the hose, but it is very important that we do keep that nice and tight. Down below that, we have your low point drains. Those are going to be the lowest point in the unit's plumbing. We see we have a couple valves here. Of course, with any valve, if you're against the flow, you're closed. Open would be with the flow. Now these are the lowest point in the unit's plumbing. So this is how we're going to drain everything in between water source and fixture. Is going to be drained from this location here. Manufacturer is going to recommend that anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days that we do go ahead and drain all of the water from the unit. That's going to not only include the freshwater holding tank if it's been in use, that's going to include these low point drains, which again are the to and from plumbing, the point A to point B plumbing, everything in between water source and fixture is going to be drained via here. Lastly, we're going to finish up with the water heater, and we're just about ready to go ahead and talk about that. So this is a 6-gallon capacity water heater. This particular water heater is a propane gas only water heater, so there is no 110 volt electric heating element. The switch to turn this on is going to be on the inside, and it is a 12 volt direct spark ignition appliance. So with that in mind, manufacturer has very explicit instructions on how to safely drain this. First thing we're going to want to do is make sure that we depressurize it. So what we're going to do is we are going to cut the overall inflow of water to the unit as a whole, meaning that if the city water connection here is hooked up, we're just going to physically turn off the valve or make sure that we have no new water flowing into the unit. If we're drawing up from the tank using that 12-volt water pump, we're just going to turn that switch off. So with no new water flowing into the unit, we are going to use the hot side of any fixture within the unit to depressurize it. Now, an excellent place to do that is going to be right here on this hot side shower because it is closest to the appliance. So what you would do is you take your sprayer, you'd go ahead and open that up. You'd see some water kind of blow off from that location. Once you didn't see any more water coming from that sprayer, that is your indicator that you are depressurized here, and we can go ahead and drain it. So what we have here is going to be a 15/16 drain plug. It's slightly hard to get a wrench in there, or definitely hard to get a wrench, but probably impossible to get a socket. So what I use particularly here in the shop is going to be a 15/16 ratcheting wrench. If you want to add that to your arsenal, that's completely up to you. That's going to make things a lot easier here. So with it safely depressurized, we can go ahead and remove that drain plug. What we're going to see is the remaining 5-6 gallons of water be evacuated from this location here. This is an anode rod-less system, so you don't have to worry about maintaining or changing an anode rod. One thing worth noting is that you have a little nylon or plastic drain plug here. Very important that we keep that a nylon drain plug. Reason being is because it is not only a secondary safety feature from Atwood Dometic if the pressure within the unit were to rise to an unsafe amount and the pressure relief valve here were to fail, it's going to overcome those threads and spit that out like a cork. Other than the safety standpoint of things, it will void your warranty with Atwood Dometic, so keep that in mind. Now, on the flip side of things, they also recommend that you are going to prime the water heater or feed 6 gallons of water to the unit before you start heating that water when returning it back to service. So first things first, we're going to replace our drain plug. Once we've done so, we are going to introduce, introduce a flow of water into the unit, whether that be the city water connection or the freshwater holding tank. Once we have that system pressurized, we're again going to come here to that outside shower. We're going to go ahead and open up that hot side of the valve again. What we're going to see here now is going to be slightly different. You're going to see a lot more water coming from that fixture. It's going to be very airy, very spitty. What's happening is it is displacing the air within the tank and refilling with water. It takes about 5 minutes or less for that to happen, but you know it's full. Once that flow at the fixture normalizes, you are good to go to start heating that water. Other than that, with this particular appliance, again, just to drive it home, you have some openings here. This is a propane burning appliance. It is very important that we do protect that, again, from mud daubers, flying insects, things like that. Outside shower, we kind of already seen how that works. You do have access to hot and cold water. Do have a nice nifty holder there for that. On off on the shower head to help you conserve water consumption. Everything does kind of wrap up into that compartment and is stowed under key. Moving on here to the rear of the unit. We have stabilizer jacks here on the rear, so let me go ahead and get that crank handle. So here we have a auxiliary propane port. This is an awesome feature. This is a direct connection to the propane tank up front. What this is going to allow you to do is add a secondary propane appliance, whether that's a gas grill, propane fire pit, propane heater. Either way, it's going to utilize a quick connect fitting. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide that quick connect backwards. We're going to insert the corresponding male fitting. Once fully inserted, that's going to lock on, and then we do have a secondary valve here that we would need to open to feed that supply to the appliance. When we are ready to disconnect, we need to make sure that we turn that valve in the off position. We're going to slide that collar back, and again, our fitting will pop out, and we just make sure we put that rock guard in place. That way we are not going to have any road debris or dirt depositing itself in the fitting. Moving back a little bit further, we can see we have our frame mounted spare there. That's only going to work on a gravity feed system. You're going to use a 3/4 inch drive socket and extension to go ahead and lower that. You just follow the instructions there. Once it makes contact with the pavement, you're going to go ahead and wrestle that on out. That's going to allow you to be able to change the tires here. Moving on, we have a 15 amp outlet here. So this is an all-weather outlet. This is just going to allow you to power any appliances here on the outside of the camper. Nothing too crazy. Moving on, little hard to see here. Right there in the front of the axle, we see that little blue piece of PEX in that valve. That's going to be your freshwater drain. So if that freshwater tank has been in use, it's very important that we do drain it before storing the unit. So just to kind of bring things full circle, since we've seen all of the drain locations thus far on the unit, when we are going to store the unit for more than 7 days, it's very important that we do empty all the water from the unit. First stop is going to be the freshwater tank. If it's been in use, we're going to open up that valve. We're going to allow that water to drain right there from that location. We're then going to circle back to the low point drains. We're going to go ahead and open those up, allow that point A to point B plumbing to be drained. Last but not least, we're going to drain the water heater separate of the other systems, following the procedure that we outlined when we were at the appliance. Once we've done so, 99% of the water has been purged from the unit. If you're going to be storing the unit, you're good to go at that point. If we're going to be winterizing the unit, it's very important that we go a few steps further. We're going to talk about that winterization process when we do get to the inside of the unit. Now, entry door here, nothing too crazy there. You have two separate locks here. Bottom one's going to be your deadbolt lock. When utilizing that key, it's important to note that you turn to the direction to engage that deadbolt. You're then going to return to center and remove the key. If we're locking the latch lock, we're going to turn it into that secondary position, and we can go ahead and remove the key from that position. There's no need to return back to center. Front step here, very easily, is just up and in. Again, nothing too crazy. Pulls on out. You have an assist handle here. Again, kind of usual suspects as far as that's concerned. Also have a nice door holdback that's going to keep that door from flopping in the wind. If you are going to go ahead and utilize that screen door, you're just going to seat that there. That will allow you to go ahead and utilize the screen door here. It's just held onto that door with this little spring catch here, so you just got to release that. Moving on here to the front, I think we just about covered everything here on the exterior of the 15 FK. We're going to hop on the inside. We're going to take a look at those features and accessories there on the inside. All right, here we are on the interior of the 15 FK. Starting up with our safety equipment, we have our fire extinguisher there. It's very important that we do go ahead and test all of our safety equipment every time we take the unit out. In this particular case, we're going to push that green tab down there on the fire extinguisher. If it springs back, that means there's still life in the unit. If it stays depressed, we need to pull that out, replace with a new one. Also, we have our porch light switch here, just a on-off toggle switch. We can see that light reflecting off my hand there. That is just the light here on the entry door. Coming on in here, we have our kitchen area, of course. We have our sink, nothing too crazy, hot and cold. There on the fixture, we have some lights on the underside of the cabinetry, which do have their on-off button at the center of the lens. A little bit of storage here on the underside, as well as some plumbing, so just be aware that what we store in this location isn't going to interfere with that plumbing. So here we have your Dometic cooktop. This one is nice. It has an igniter on it, makes things nice and easy for you. We're going to go ahead and turn that to light. We push that igniter, that's going to light up that burner, allow us to go ahead and adjust from high to low on that burner. All right, so next up we have your convenience center courtesy panel. Goes by multiple different names. This is going to give us not only a real-time readout of where our tanks sit, but we are also going to control our water heater, our modes of the water heater, as well as turn on our water pump. So starting up here with the courtesy panel, if I go ahead and push the battery button, that's going to indicate full to us. On this scale, the more lights you see, the fuller that particular test subject is. So battery is full. Battery is going to read full anytime you are plugged into shore power. To get an accurate reading of where that battery sits, we're going to unplug from shore power. We're going to go ahead and test from this location. Fresh water is 2/3 full from our testing activities. Black is empty. Gray water is empty. We have our sources here of the water heater. Now, I incorrectly noted on the exterior that this was a propane only water heater. It is in fact dual source. So we have a 110 volt heating element as well as a propane heating element, or excuse me, propane ignition. You can operate both sources at the same time. That's going to give you the highest recharge rate, looking at 17 gallons per hour with both sources, 15 gallons per hour with only LP, and 15 gallons per hour with electricity only. If we're operating it here on propane, we're going to go ahead and turn that switch on. It's going to start its lighting cycle. Now, similar to the refrigerator, if those lines are empty and it hasn't been ran in a while, it may take more than one lighting cycle for that to actually fire up. So what this particular appliance does is it cycles 3 times. If it does not light by the end of that 3rd cycle, it's going to illuminate this fault light. If that happens, let's just hop on out of the unit, make sure our propane valve is on, give the tank a lift, make sure there's actually gas in the tank. If you have both of those things, we're going to go ahead and we're going to flip that switch back on. That's going to allow that to cycle another 3 times. Generally, if that issue were just empty lines, it's going to light on the first try of the 2nd cycle. And lastly, we have our water pump switch. That's going to pressurize the system. That's what we're using for testing today in this video. So just keep in mind if you hear that water pump running in the background, that is why. Drop down low here, we have your high point microwave. Nothing too crazy with this. Just like any other microwave you've probably used in your life, you have some preset cooking temperatures here at the top, time and temperature here at the bottom. Turntable style, again, really nothing new and exciting for you there, but it is a very functional appliance. We're going to kind of stick our heads here into the restroom. What we have here is your Dometic toilet. That is a pedal flush, so it will be a light press to go ahead and fill up the bowl, full press to flush. Very important that we do keep a little bit of water in the bowl. That's going to help keep those bad smells down when we flush. When we talk about chemical treatments, deodorizers, tissue dissolvers, things like that, all of those products are going to be introduced here at the commode. Just follow the instructions on the bottle. Also keep in mind that we are going to be using single ply RV grade toilet paper. We want that to dissolve as fast as possible within that black water holding tank. And again, just a reminder, it is our goal to keep that black water holding tank in as wet or flowing condition as we can. So nice long flushes, things like that. So here we have your shower, easy on off here at the fixture. You do have a couple different modes there in terms of spray. So you have a jet and kind of a more spread out spray. Really cool. It does have a hanger. Light here in the bathroom is going to be on off on the actual switch, much like the previous lights we've seen. Your shower curtain's kind of on that kind of projector style, self-rolling. You're just going to go ahead and it's holds by tension here, and then you just push that in to release it. Make sure you have a hand on it so it doesn't kind of slingshot back into its keeper. Up top above my head, we have your fan. This is an exhaust, or yes, this is an exhaust fan. We're going to go ahead and open it up here on the lid, and then we have a high, medium, and low setting that's going to help go ahead and move some air around for us when we're done using it. Before we're going down the road, we want to make sure we do go ahead and close it, turn this into the off position. You do have a little fuse holder there. If this is giving you any issues, not working properly, number one thing to check is going to be that fuse. Standard kind of window style AC here, very indicative of what you're generally going to see with these kind of products. You have a couple fan speeds, a low and a high fan speed, low cool, high cool, and then we have a temperature control within the setting. So very basic, very easy. Does have a removable filter. Not 100% sure on how to get to it on this particular one. It looks like here on the left side, you can go ahead and pull that filter out for cleaning. Below that, we have your Jensen stereo unit. Now this is going to be remote controlled as well. I don't think we have that available for us right now, but easy on off there on the display. Volume control there, AM FM radio up top, Bluetooth or USB. We have HDMI or auxiliary. We have time, zones A and B. So I don't think we had, I don't think we have outside speakers on this particular unit. And we don't. So this is a pretty generic stereo designed for kind of multi-zone units. Of course, in a unit of this size, we are only going to have that single zone. So just keep in mind that zone B is kind of null and void. We have our seek buttons here, volume control as well, as you see me with that. We have some presets here. These do have some secondary options as well. Inside of our refrigerator here, we've seen how to control that there on the exterior of the unit. Really nothing too crazy here for the interior. One thing to note is it does have a little lock latch here. What that's going to do, that's going to keep your food from spilling out when you're going down the road. So just lock it like that. That's going to keep that door locked. Below that, we have the blower motor for your furnace. All of your heat within the unit is going to come from this location. Again, this is a propane sourced 12 volt blower motor and direct spark ignition appliance. In a unit of this size, this is going to be more than enough to knock the chill off the air on the coldest of nights. Moving on, kind of starting up here on this side, we have a 110 volt outlet here. We have our antenna booster. Now this corresponds with an antenna there on the roof. It's an omnidirectional digital over-the-air television antenna. What that means for you is once you've made a connection here to your television, if this green light is on, what we're going to do is just do a channel search. That antenna is smart enough to go ahead and seek out the strongest signal. It's going to bring in some over-the-air programming dependent on that signal, and you have that standard RG6 cable fitting to make that connection. A couple USBs there as well. That's going to help you charge any USB-driven appliances, phones, whatever. Up top here on the cabinetry, we have the resettable plug for your air conditioner. Again, very much kind of like a GFI outlet. It is resettable, surge protected, something like that. And then we have your furnace here. Now, to turn this on, we're going to rotate that top switch to the left, and then their starting position is actually going to be all the way to the left here on this scale. We're going to pick a temperature there, set a temperature. It does have a little thermometer on there to tell you the real-time temperature. It's going to kick on that blower motor immediately. 16 seconds after that, it actually ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's producing noticeable heat. Generally, by about a minute and a half in a unit of this size, it has set off the smoke alarm. Not something you have to be concerned of. That is within the manufacturer specifications. As it continues to run within that first 15 minutes of operation, that efficiency goes way up. It should stop setting off that smoke alarm. Speaking of smoke alarm, it's going to be right above my head, and this is going to just be a 9 volt driven smoke alarm, same variant you're going to find in your house. It does have a test button. And again, with all of our safety equipment, it is very important that we do go ahead and test before taking the unit out. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and push that button down. Emergency exit here. If your entry door becomes blocked, you can feel free to exit from this location here. What you are going to do is you are going to pull this out of the keeper. That would allow you to not only operate the window normally, but in the event of emergency, you can go ahead and yank this screen out of the way. Exit from here, again, if you're particularly motivated enough. Window shades, this is going to go for the other window as well. They are just pull down friction style shades. They are retensionable. If this loosens up over time, you can just pull the slack out and give it some more life. Moving around here, down low we have fuse panel breaker box. Everything we see here on the left side is going to be 110 volt resettable light switch style breakers. And in terms of function, they are labeled here. Here on the right side, we have your 12 volt appliances. Those are going to be used replaceable blade style automotive fuses. You can go ahead and source those either from our parts department or any automotive store is going to carry those. Does give you a little light next to each one of these fuses to let you know which one it burns out or needs to be changed. And generally you can go ahead and see that light from this window here. Beside that, we have your carbon monoxide LP leak detector, another very important piece of a safety equipment. So we are going to make sure that we do test that every single time we take the unit out. It does have a push button, functions very much like a smoke alarm, although it is wired in the 12-volt section of the camper. So what that means for you, no battery to change, anything like that. Also is going to kind of secondarily act like a low battery alarm. If your battery up front gets to be too low, that's going to start to indicate to you, letting you know that you're about to lose a very important safety feature. Next up, I think last but not least, we've pretty much covered most of our bases here. We're just going to go ahead and go through the procedure to make this large table into a bed. And we're going to talk about the table a little bit more in depth as well. So you can see this is a multi-positional table, can really be orientated anywhere you'd like. So what we're going to do first is we are going to separate the tabletop from the arms, and to do so we have a little tension band here. We're just going to snap that out and we were going to loosen it. This one's actually already loosened. From there we're going to go ahead and wrestle this tabletop up out of that holding bracket, and if you're lucky it's going to come loose fairly easy. Next up we're going to push that to the side because we got to get some stuff out of the way as well. We can continue breaking this down if we want to store these pieces separately. What you would do is you're of course going to snap that and kind of de-thread that. That will allow that to kind of come off there. And lastly, we're going to go ahead and remove this. This works slightly different. This one is just a screw. So you back that off. Next, we're going to make things nice and easy for us. We're going to momentarily lift up these cushions. And we need to go ahead and set our tabletop down. Now you can see on the tabletop we have some Velcro here and some Velcro on the corresponding position. On the ledge there, we're just going to line everything up. That's going to keep that from going anywhere. Next, we are going to take our cushions and line them up, something like that. That's going to make the sleeping area there. So that's just about covers it. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and show you kind of that winterization process. Now just keep in mind that when we go to winterize, we're going to do that in the colder months, obviously. Once we've made our way here to the inside, we've already dumped all the water, the water from the unit using the process that we talked about there on the outside, draining the freshwater holding tank, draining the low point drains, and also draining the water heater. So what we have here is, of course, all the way back here in this compartment, you have your water heater. You could, of course, lift this board up as well. That would give you greater overall access to the appliance. But what we are going to do, or really the only thing we're looking to do here, is we're going to bypass the water heater before we move further. So reason why we're going to bypass it is because it's a closed appliance and we don't want to fill it with antifreeze, number one, because it's hard to get it out. And number two, it would take an extra 6 gallons of antifreeze to fully winterize it. So you'll see a valve right here, and we are just going to move that into the secondary position, so up and down there. What that's doing, that's creating a loop in the system. That's cutting off the inflow and the outflow to the water heater, and just again creating a loop in the system so we're not going to pump any water back into it. From there, we are going to go ahead and look for this hose that's not connected to anything. This is going to be our vacuum line. What we're going to do is turn that valve again into that secondary position. Once I figure out how it goes, there we go. Once we've done that, we're going to take this and we're going to stick that directly into a bottle of antifreeze. And again, we're talking about an RV grade alcohol-based antifreeze. Once we've done so, we're going to walk over to the courtesy panel. We're going to turn the water pump on. Next up, we're going to go to each water source. So that includes the outside shower, the inside fixture here in the kitchen, the shower inside the bathroom, as well as the toilet. We are going to open all of those up. We're going to allow water to flow through it, or antifreeze in this case. Once we see that pink at the fixture, we are going to continue for just a few minutes or a few seconds longer. That way it can fill up the P-traps and things on the outward side of the plumbing. And once we've done so, we're fully winterized. Now when it does come to returning the unit back to service, after springtime comes along, we want to go camping, we can go ahead, if we haven't already, we're going to make sure we return that valve into the inline position there. We're then going to drain all of that antifreeze out or rinse it out. Of course, you can just fill up the unit and drain it multiple times, making sure we're getting it out. We could obviously feed water directly here from this location like we did the antifreeze. But again, very important to make sure we have all of that water from the lines and the appliances. Once we are fairly certain that we've done that, we're going to come back here and we're going to open up this water heater back for service. We're just going to return that valve again into that position. That's going to allow that fresh water, that new water, to flow within the unit. Remember, at that time, we need to go through that prime procedure with the water heater before we start heating it. So we want to make sure we actually have water in the tank before we start heating it. Just about covers the winterization process and basically the unit as a whole. We're going to put everything back together here. We'll see you here in just a minute. So we hope you enjoyed the walkthrough here on the Bushwhacker Plus 15FK. I think we did a pretty good job at covering our bases, but if you have any questions, anything that we can explain further or differently, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We'd be happy to help you any way we can. Thank you very much for watching the video. We appreciate it.